You're listening to part one of an interview with the second place winner of the Catholic University Center for Human Rights annual Human Rights Essay Contest by William Saunders, Director of the Center for Human Rights. To read the award-winning essays, go to humanrights.catholic.edu.
Welcome to another edition of the Barefoot Lawyer podcast on China. My name is William Saunders. I'm the director of the Center for Human Rights, where our distinguished fellow is Chen Guangcheng, the famous barefoot lawyer from China. And the center holds an annual essay contest looking at human rights issue connected to China. It might be in China or it might be outside of China, because the Communist Party government in China creates problems in the USA and in other countries. And so with me now is Peter James, who is a rising junior at Catholic University. And he entered an essay in this contest, excuse me, that an excellent essay is one of the prize winners, which, by the way, will be posted contemporaneous with us releasing this video. So you can go to our webpage and read Peter's excellent essay. And our webpage is catholic.edu/CHR for Center for Human Rights. So catholic.edu/CHR. So Peter's essay was entitled China's Death Camps. It begins with a very, an unforgettable recounting of an experience by a man by the name of Dr. Enver Tobin Bugaha. Anyway, why don't you tell us, Peter, what that is? Tell us how you began the essay and what this doctor is talking about.
Yeah, so I began the essay with the surgeon's primary account of him in the early 90s of harvesting organs from prisoners of conscience. And so this doctor, he now lives in the U.S., but he fled China and testified to a bipartisan commission on China in the U.S. and gave his primary testimony. And so I used that as a kind of intro, as a kind of good grabber into the essay, and really show like this is a real problem and here's a primary source on it.
Yeah, why don't you tell the listener who hasn't yet read your essay just what was his account? What did it concern? What did he say? You don't have to read the whole thing, but just what did he say? What was he talking about?
Oh, for sure. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I remember that I'm fairly sure he worked at a hospital, and so officers basically transported him to where a line of prisoners of conscience were lined up and shot. And so basically, in his account, there's a man who was bleeding out, and he was told under direct orders to hurry up and extract the man's organs. And so basically he did so. And he found that when he was cutting into this person, the person was still alive. And he had to extract the organs, put them in a strange container. And he was told that nothing really happened. And, he just had to go back to his regular job and basically never speak of this again.
So I want the listener to understand. I hope that that didn't go past you too fast, what Peter was saying. I mean, these are people who were alive, and then they have their organs. We can use the word harvest. We can use the word removed. We can use the word surgical. But what happened is that they ripped the living organs out of a living human being. It's not harvesting corn, it's not surgery to repair something. It's not removing the trash. It is taking a living person against their will, holding them down and ripping out their organs. It's hard to imagine anything more horrible than that. Now, why was this being done? Why was he being forced to do that?
I mean, ultimately, I don't know the state of mind of the Chinese government, but I have a good guess on why they would do this. Is because they ultimately want to have their own system working, the Chinese Communist government as being the highest power. And in order to do that, they have to crush discontent. They have to crush anything that threatens that power. So if there's, whether it's Uyghur Muslims or Tibetan Buddhist or you name it, or even Falun Gong, anyone who sees a power outside of the Chinese Communist government, they're a threat to that system of government. And so it's a dual benefit for the Chinese Communist Party to extract these organs, because not only does it get rid of these possible threats, but also it gives them profit, and they could sell it to different countries in the Middle East. So it really benefits them overall. It's just you could chalk it up to Machiavellian self-interest, but it is what it is, and it's an atrocity.
Well, yeah, and you pointed out that this Dr. Toti is a Uyghur himself, and listeners probably know what's going on with the Uyghurs, but to the extent they don't, the Uyghurs are a mostly, or maybe almost exclusively, Muslim group within China, in northwest China, and they have been declared to be enemies of the state. And the Chinese Communist Party is in the process of trying to eliminate them through concentration camps and rapes of the women, and disruption and destruction of their culture, and by putting Chinese communist agents to live in their homes. But they're also doing this. So they're now, the Uyghurs aren't the only group. The other one you mentioned is Falun Gong, and the same things happen with them. Falun Gong, which is a spiritual practice that's in accordance with Chinese traditional spirituality or religion in a broad sense. They're considered enemies of the state, and the same thing's being done to them. And in fact, as you mentioned in your essay, Peter, almost, they also do it to some. There's some evidence has been done to Christians who are opposed, who don't do what the regime wants. So this dual purpose, this double benefit that Peter talks about, is, like he says, number one, you get rid of these people, the state does, who you consider to be enemies, and you get richer because you sell their organs to rich people in the West who need organs, or Chinese communist officials themselves take these organs to try to stay alive forever. Guangcheng has talked about this before, how there's certain people in the Chinese Communist Party who've done this so often that there are macabre jokes about them because they use other people's organs to stay alive. So horrible, incredibly, I mean, it's just hard to find words to say how terrible it is. So what can Americans do about it, Peter?
Americans can surprisingly do a lot. I mean, it can be just little things like this essay contest, or a letter to the editor, or a YouTube video or podcast, or even just telling a friend, or hosting a sponsor at like a campus. It could just be there's so many different avenues that you can raise awareness. And what comes to mind for me is, whether you agree with them or not, is the recent student protest on different college campuses like Columbia. And one can argue that they're pretty successful because the media covers it. It raised the awareness of their issue, and it creates a tension with the status quo. which ultimately cultivates a atmosphere for change. And so, of course, whether you agree with them or not, you could kind of take note of that and say, wow, like even young people really have an influence on how society operates. And so whether whatever is in your control and however you could raise awareness on this issue, you definitely can. And there's a lot more options than what you would initially think.
Yeah, I mean, one thing everybody listening should realize is uh, it's natural to think you can't do anything about something like this, but that's exactly wrong. I mean, it's exactly wrong. And although that attitude is unintentionally doing so, it actually benefits the people who do these terrible things because they have to be addressed at the government level. And the only way to get the government to do anything is for you to exercise your rights as an American to raise awareness, like Peter said, and also to tell your representatives.
The Catholic University of America's Center for Human Rights has published a documentary on the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights. The documentary features world-class human rights experts, from former State Department officials to ambassadors and human rights activists. It can be found on our website at humanrights.catholic.edu.